Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the Sustainable Business Innovation Forum. I'd like to ask everyone to please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I am from KBCSD. My name is Wha-Jin. I'm the Secretary General of the KBCSD, and I will be your MC for today. We will now begin the fourth Sustainable Business Innovation Forum that will be jointly hosted by the Ministry of Environment and the KBCSD, as well as the 14th KBCSD Leaders Forum. This forum will be held both online and offline. Particularly, the WBCSD, which is held in Switzerland, will be broadcasting this video to about 70 different countries around the world for about 20 corporations. I'd like to ask all of the participants here today to please keep your face masks on at all times, other than when you are drinking beverages or enjoying refreshments, so that we can comply with the government's COVID-19 related guidelines. However, as for speakers, as they are standing at a removed distance away from the participants, I'd like to say that you do not have to wear your face mask. We are providing Korean and English simultaneous interpretation. If you would like to make use of the receivers, please set them to channel 1 for Korean and channel 2 for English. Under the theme of unlocking ESG-driven business opportunities through supply chain transformation, this forum will be held throughout the day today, and I'd like to thank all of the guests for being with us. Across the global value chain, we can engage in ESG business management to further strengthen our international competitive edge and allow this to venture into new industries going forward and identify new opportunities to do so. We can discuss ways for business leadership and public-private cooperation. At this forum today, I hope that we can all engage together in looking for valuable insights and advice. We do have many representatives from the industry today for this Ministry of Environment KBCSD Forum. I'd like to thank LG Chem and Hyundai Oil Bank for your sponsorship to this forum today. We'd now like to hear from the government host, Ms. Wha-Jin, Minister of Environment for the Republic of Korea, for the opening remarks. I'd like to please welcome the Minister with a big hand.
Good morning, distinguished guests. As introduced, I am Minister Han Wha-Jin, from Ministry of Environment of Republic of Korea. I would like to welcome all of you to the 4th Sustainable Business Innovation Forum, jointly hosted by MOE and Korea Business Council for Sustainable Development. First, I would like to thank the Chairman Lee Kyong-Ho of KBCSD for organizing this excellent forum. I would also like to thank Co-Chairperson Kim Sang-hyuk of 2050 Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth Commission and Honorary Chairman Soo of KBCSD, distinguished CEOs, and Your Excellencies Ambassadors and honorable guests for your presence today. Climate crisis is real and palpable across the globe. Europe suffered the worst drought in 500 years, and China is experiencing extreme heat and cold all at the same time. We all remember how it was when Typhoon Hinnam-nor hit Korea with record-breaking downpour last summer. The solution to this crisis is a net zero future. In fact, countries are coming together to push ahead with their ambitious goals and targets to achieve carbon neutrality. Global economy is being reshaped as well. EU is introducing the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism to impose carbon prices on imported goods. Businesses are moving in the same direction, and an increasing number of global companies are rushing to join RE100. With more companies focusing on environmentally and socially responsible management with less climate impact, ESG is becoming a key element in deciding corporate value. The scope of ESG management is not just limited to individual companies, but has expanded to the entire supply chain, affecting suppliers and their partners. Especially for exporters, ESG management is gaining its importance. Korea's economy is export-driven, and there are many exporters in Korea who are faced with the need to be part of this trend in global supply chain and remain competitive in the market. A growing number of companies in Korea are declaring their own net zero targets and joining RE100. The Ministry of Environment of Korea is doing its utmost with various policy measures to support Korean industry's efforts for ESG business practices. We are scaling up financial support for investments in greenhouse gas emission reduction facilities in corporate supply chain. Also, for small and medium-sized enterprises in need of human and financial resources, we are providing ESG consulting services. Recently, there is high demand for corporate environmental information, and we are planning on gradually expanding the scope of companies required to disclose their environmental information. And the items for disclosures will also be revised in line with international standards. Also, in order to stimulate industry's investment in green economic activities, Korea recently released Korean Taxonomy Guideline. We are also operating a pilot project under close collaboration with businesses and financial institutions before the taxonomy is applied in early next year. Today's forum will provide us with meaningful opportunities for the government and businesses from both home and abroad to explore together how to develop our ESG capabilities. I hope this forum will spur innovation among businesses through their sharing of best practices and further strengthen our partnership between the government and businesses. The Ministry of Environment will carefully listen to your voice and spare no effort in providing the support that you require. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you a successful forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Next, we would like to invite the industry host, Chairman Lee Kyong-Ho of the KBCSD, for his opening remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by sincerely thanking dignitaries from the government, political, and business communities for attending the KBCSD Leaders Forum in conjunction with the 4th Sustainable Business Innovation Forum, a joint event that is co-hosted by the Ministry of Environment and the Korea Business Council for Sustainable Development. As a co-host, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Minister Wha-Jin of Environment and Vice Minister Yoo Jae-chul for their tremendous support for the success of the forum. My thanks also go to Mr. Lim Sang-sup of the Korea Forest Service, who will deliver a speech entitled Forest and Carbon Neutrality Support Programs for Businesses during the luncheon. And my special thanks go to Mr. Kim Sang-hyup, co-chairperson of the 2050 Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth Commission, for taking time out of his busy schedule, Mr. Dong-Soo, honorary chairman of the KBCSD, for sending congratulatory video remarks, Myung-soo, honorary chairman of the KBCSD, and Deputy Executive Director Mary Warwick of the IEA for delivering a keynote speech. I would also like to extend my appreciation to speakers who are at the forefront of ESG management, including Shin Hak-chul, CEO of LG Chem, Kim Kyo-hyun, CEO and Vice Chairman of Lotte Chemical, Kang Dal-ho, Vice Chairman and CEO of Hyundai Oil Bank, Hwang Ju-ho, CEO of Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power, MP Aswin, Google Cloud Head of Supply Chain and Logistics Industry Solutions APAC, as well as those joining from a video message, notably Mr. Paul Martin, Director General of Energy Department at Queensland Government, and Mr. John Hopkins, President and CEO of NewScale. Above all, I am delighted to see here today entrepreneurs from home and abroad who lead the standard of sustainable development and ambassadors to Korea who are honoring this event with their distinguished presence. As ESG and carbon neutrality regulations are crossing borders and extending to the global supply chain, ESG management has emerged as a critical business issue that must be addressed to reverse the COVID-19-induced disruption in the supply chain and strengthen competitiveness in the global market. This year's World Economic Forum highlighted the importance of connecting ESG to global trade. Given that trade accounts for more than half of the world's GDP, and 70% of it moves through the global value chain, cross-border ESG regulations represent competition among countries for supply chain and technology leadership to create new trade norms and standards in particular. In fact, ESG, which used to be a small part of free trade agreements, has been evolving into a trade norm. Cases in point include the carbon border tax, a tax on carbon emissions attributed to imported goods, and the EU Supply Chain Due Diligence Act, which stipulates civil liabilities for violations of ESG due diligence rules for supply chain. In these circumstances, I expect the forum, which is held under the theme of Unlocking ESG-driven Business Opportunities Through Supply Chain Transformation, will provide government and business leaders with insight on two fronts. First and foremost, I hope we will discuss innovative strategies that help businesses fine-tune their ESG policy for supply chain through technological innovation throughout the product life cycle, a data platform, and a win-win between big and small companies. In particular, I expect us to reach a consensus on government programs to support infrastructure building, such as mutual recognition of carbon allowances and national statistics systems concerning the product life cycle, so that the Korean business community can seamlessly respond to the move of key countries to turn ESG into trade rules. I also expect to see a variety of cooperation models to help Korean businesses use their ESG competitiveness in the supply chain to create a win-win ecosystem with market partners in new low-carbon industries such as green hydrogen, small modular reactors, and CCUS. The focus of discussion here should be how we can create business strategies and government support programs to realize economies of scale by leveraging the unique competitiveness of countries and businesses that comprise the value chain. Today, we have presentations by leaders from Queensland, where Korean companies have significant presence in hydrogen business, and NewScale Power, a world-renowned company in the field of SMRs. I hope these presentations will open up new opportunities for Korea to create more synergies with Australia and the United States. Distinguished guests, this year marks the 20th anniversary of the KBCSD. Since its inception, the KBCSD has fulfilled its mission as a council of CEOs to lead sustainable national growth with a creative entrepreneurial spirit and innovative public-private partnerships. At a time when national competitiveness is largely dependent upon ESG competitiveness of businesses, we stand at an inflection point where Korean businesses need a greater capacity for innovation. I hope the forum, co-hosted by the Ministry of Environment, will serve as an opportunity to explore ways for the Korean business community, including the KBCSD, to take a great leap forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to next introduce the founding chair, Dr. Dong-Soo, and current honorary chairman of KBCSD and an honorary chairman of GS Caltex. He shared with us a video message under the title of 3 Key Transitional Challenges for Low-Carbon Supply Chain. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to extend my sincere welcome to dignitaries from home and abroad who are here to attend the 14th KBCSD Leaders Forum in conjunction with the 4th Sustainable Business Innovation Forum. And my deepest gratitude goes to Minister of Environment Wha-Jin and KBCSD Chairman Kyong-Ho for putting this forum together. Mr. Sang-Hyuk Kim, co-chairperson of the 2050 Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth Commission, for taking the time out of their busy schedule to honor this event with your presence, as well as leaders from the political and business communities, as well as international organizations who have made the discerning decision to serve as speakers for the forum. This year holds great significance as it marks the 20th anniversary of KBCSD and the KBCSD Leaders Forum. Started as a forum to showcase the strategies of top corporate management for sustainable development, the event has now grown into a platform that brings together governments, businesses, and international organizations to actively discuss where we should be headed in terms of sustainable growth. KBCSD, since 2019, has worked with the Korean Ministry of Environment to engage a wider range of stakeholders under the title Sustainable Business Innovation Forum. I expect the forum to be transformed into a platform for public-private partnership that promotes exchanges with outside organizations, respects social and environmental values, and leads the capitalist economy onwards. Distinguished guests, recently, friend-shoring among like-minded countries has brought about new changes in the global supply chain, as we can see from the US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework and the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM. In this process, one of the factors that will determine the ability to gain economic hegemony is ESG. Countries and businesses that make a bold decision to embrace ESG and transition to a carbon-neutral system will emerge as economic pillars which lead the order of global capitalism. Under these circumstances, if the Korean business community is to become a key trading partner throughout the world that leads an ESG-based supply chain, it will need three innovative transformations going forward. First and foremost, ESG goals and economic sustainability should be taken into account together to achieve industrial transformation in a way that promotes coexistence. We need an ecosystem which allows old and new industries to go hand in hand in order to maintain the industrial competitiveness of Korea as a manufacturing powerhouse and to make a soft landing towards a carbon-free economy successfully. Second, the business community should discard traditional profit-oriented strategies and fundamentally transform its perspective on investments in low-carbon sectors. According to McKinsey & Co., a total of $9.2 trillion, which is equivalent to 6 times the GDP of Korea, will be invested in low-carbon industries around the world each year until the year 2050. Korean businesses should hence recognize the future value of low-carbon sectors and develop relevant technologies ahead of others, and with bold government support in the form of deregulation, we need to strengthen their presence in the global carbon neutrality market. Finally, all stakeholders of the supply chain should be engaged in a cooperative endeavor. This will begin with the effort to transform into an equal partnership between big and small companies and between upstream and downstream industries so they can share their ESG capabilities while the government facilitates the building of an ESG inventory for companies across the value chain. Distinguished guests, carbon neutrality and ESG implementation across the supply chain represent a significant challenge that require transformative changes in the existing economic system. I hope that economic players here at the forum, such as governments, businesses, and international organizations, will pool their strength and wisdom to find solutions for the right transformation and formulate concrete ideas on implementation. Let me close by wishing every one of you good health and success. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your kind remarks. Next, we would like to hear from Kim Sang-hyuk, co-chairperson of the 2050 Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth Commission of the Republic of Korea, who has come here despite his busy government activity, government schedule, to wish us a successful forum. Please give him a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Kim Sang-hyuk, the co-chair of the 2050 Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth Commission under the Office of the President. I would like to extend my deepest congratulations to all of you on the 4th Sustainable Business Innovation Forum. I did have the opportunity to participate in this forum several times in the past, and I remember walking away with great insights and valuable lessons each time. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the co-hosts of today's forum, the Minister of Environment, Wha-Jin, and the Chair of the Korea Business Council for Sustainable Development, Kyong-Ho. I would also like to thank Dong-Soo, Honorary Chairman of the KBCSD, for the video congratulatory speech. I am deeply grateful, and I extend my words of respect. I understand that KBCSD is celebrating its 20th birthday, and the fact that we have Honorary Chair Dong-Soo, the founding chair, providing us with insights as he has, over 20 years, continuously called for green growth and sustainable development. I have to say that he will forever be my mentor. I remember at the time learning about green growth and KBCSD, which really led the first movement of green growth. and sustainable development, which I usually would say that KBCSD will continue to grow in influence to the point of becoming like FKI for Korea. Thank you. And of course, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Secretary General Ha for his tireless contribution as well. And I would like to thank Deputy Executive Director of the IEA, Mary Warwick, for the upcoming keynote speech, as well as the distinguished guests joining us from home and abroad. Just yesterday, together with Prime Minister Han Dong-Soo, I met with the President in his Yongsan presidential office to talk about the direction forward for carbon neutrality and sustainable development. We had a 2-hour meeting, including lunch, and there were the international policy heads, presidential aides, and secretaries from different related fields who sat down at the same meeting, and this was representative of how committed the President is to this issue. President Yoon has said that this is an issue that we cannot avoid, and if that is the case, that we should rush in and try to find new opportunities for growth, to find new growth engines to take the new next leap forward. And yesterday afternoon, together with Minister Han, who is here today, Minister Lee of MOTI, Mr. Oh of Science and Technology, Mr. Oh of Kwon of MOLIT, all came together for an international conference. And the policies for green growth and sustainable development for President Yoon looks at 3 keywords, looking at leadership and accountability. The last administration said that the NDCs would decrease by about 40% to about 2030. At the Presidential Transition Committee, I took a look at last year, which was 2021, I saw that greenhouse gas emissions actually increased by 35%. The new administration wants to be accountable to the promise that we have made to the international community. This means that the greenhouse gas emissions have to be decreased to about 4 to 5% each year. In fact, we have seen this increase over time, increase every year over the past few years. And this means that this year, we might, despite all of our efforts, we will see a minimal increase in greenhouse gas emissions as well. The past administration has said that we will exit from nuclear power, has engaged in expensive energy power generation, however, fixed energy costs and gas energy costs. During MB's administration, we have seen 7-time hikes of the electricity tariff prices, despite the criticism. We can take some lessons from this, the first of which is responsibility and accountability. In the climate neutrality era, we should and must make ambitious goals. However, we also have to keep our promise, and if we cannot keep the promise and pass this on to the next administration, that will be very irresponsible indeed. President Yoon's office is looking at reasonableness and science to try to implement the promise that we made to the international community. They say that no pain, if there is no pain, there is no gain. Without pain, then we cannot have any great fruits, and we must be mindful of this mission. The second is order. When a president utters something and the energy policy continues to change, this will lead to disorder and chaos and much cost. In fact, we have experienced this lesson, this painful lesson in the past. And in the process of experiencing this painful lesson, we have seen that partially there's been cases of fraud and some unlawful activity as well. The Yoon administration will be transparent in upholding law and order and bring about social consensus and bipartisan cooperation. We want to have orderly transition, and through this orderly transition, we want to maintain predictability and calculability in our policy measures so that in production and consumption and investments that the market actors and market agents can receive clear and accurate signals as they engage in market activity. Thirdly is innovation. Manufacturing accounts for a higher proportion in Korea compared to Germany and Japan. Therefore, given our current manufacturing capacity, we have many hard-to-abate sectors across our industries where it's difficult to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions. This means that technological innovation is very urgent and important. Under the Yoon administration, we want to come up with high green growth technologies that can increase the gap between us and the competition that will go beyond the semiconductor industry. In the carbon neutrality and green growth era, we will find this answer. Just yesterday, the Carbon Neutrality Green Growth Commission had the first major conference, and it was held in KIST for this very reason. If we want to realize all of these different goals, we have to engage in strategic partnership with the industry, and this has to be further made solidified. We at the government have to remain humble and be all ears and listen very closely to the voices of the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the Russian-Ukrainian war is becoming more prolonged, and this means that the energy crisis is becoming very visible. Party Bureau of the IEA, I had the opportunity to meet with him several times, but said that this winter natural gas and energy demand and supply imbalances would lead for a very harsh and very bitter winter. Recently at the Davos Forum, I met with the energy scholar Daniel Yelgin, who said that since the 1950s oil shock, we are currently seeing the worst energy emergency, the highest energy emergency. This means that there will be conflicts between and among nations, and this conflict could be prolonged for the next 10 years or more. Korea is an energy-poor country, and a harsh and bitter winter is coming to us as well. Not long ago, I met with the CEO of a CEO manufacturer who said that coal prices have gone up about 7 times in just 1 year, and that the coal contracts that they have engaged in with Russia would not be met. In this current situation, we're seeing global inflation and economic recession. All of these will lead to a very vicious cycle indeed. This means that our choice and our strategy must be very clear. In this current energy supply imbalance, we have to respond to this very quickly, but we also have to really work hard on energy saving policies and energy saving measures as a whole of country approach. And also we need to come up with energy markets, fundamental innovation for the energy market as well. This is a very important problem that we have to work on. We have to work on what we need to do in terms of energy transition and setting the next path forward. I believe that right now is the best time for us to be robust in moving into a clean energy transition. Ladies and gentlemen, the Yoon Suk-yeol administration wants to have a stable and balance between nuclear energy and renewable energy. Some say that the Yoon administration is ignoring renewable energy. This is a misunderstanding. That is not the case. As Samsung Electronics, the RE100 guide clearly stipulates that industry renewable energy demand is continuing to go up. In fact, just now I had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Shin of LG Chem, and I asked him whether he thought this was true. He said that in Korea, renewable energy, there should be more and more substantial renewable energy supplied to Korea. And this means that we also have to respond to this as such. Furthermore, with CCUS and hydrogen industry and new energy technologies, we have to take a very open mind and open attitude towards these technological breakthroughs. I've said this before, but the Yoon administration will fully support private sector-led technological breakthroughs and innovation. And for this to happen, we need to have clear and open communication. At this KBCSD Leadership Forum, this is a very important, a valuable opportunity for us to have that kind of communication. I'd like to ask you to please and urge you to let your voices be heard. Even if the advice might not be sweet to my ears, I would love to hear your advice. We will literally be your true partners. Because without that kind of partnership, we know very well that we cannot overcome this current challenge. We ask you to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Kim, for that congratulatory remarks. I would like to thank all the dignitaries and VIPs for their kind words. Warm round of applause to all of them. Thank you. We now move on to the next agenda item. Just give us one moment as we rearrange this stage.
지금부터 글로벌 공급망 재편이 불러올
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin setting the scene, transitioning to new energy and economic landscape in our journey towards a net zero. For our first speaker, we'd like to invite Dong-Soo, Honorary Chairman of the KBCSD, be talking on incorporating ESG supply chain elements into business strategy and public-private partnership. Please welcome him for his introductory remarks.
제14회 KBCSD 리더스 포럼 겸 제4회
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I am excited to welcome all of you to the 14th KBCSD Leaders Forum in conjunction with the 4th Sustainable Business Innovation Forum. It's a great pleasure to be here with like-minded leaders of the political and business communities who are committed to ESG management, as well as Your Excellencies ambassadors and dignitaries from academia. The global business environment has experienced significant changes over the years. In the past, the competitive advantage of individual companies was crucial from a strategic perspective. As the diversification of the supply chain for the sake of carbon neutrality has emerged as top priority for businesses, the competitive advantage of the entire ecosystem that comprises the overall business value chain has become all the more important. Given that circumstances, I would like to suggest how the business community should respond proactively to the transformation of the global supply chain ecosystem and propose ways for cooperation among businesses, governments, and international organizations. First and foremost, the Korean business community should strengthen its partnership with governments and institutions to create a win-win ecosystem in the global supply chain, starting from production to logistics and consumption, in collaboration with partners from both home and abroad that comprise the value chain of emerging low-carbon industries. Recently, the rise of regional blocs has accelerated the shift in the global trade structure. This makes it imperative for Korean companies to be a step ahead in the global value chain of their environmental industry by working with partners from other countries to explore new business opportunities in suitable and innovative areas such as clean energy conversion and hydrogen ecosystem, EVs, and ESS. Starting with Korea-China CEO Roundtable, launched back in 2015, the KBCSD is operating a program to facilitate exchanges between political and business leaders from both countries in order to help identify new opportunities for bilateral cooperation in eco-friendly business areas. Based on this experience, I would like to propose options for expanding cooperation with other countries like Australia and Japan. With regards to Japan, whose economic structure is similar to that of Korea, we need to work with Japan Business Federation in areas such as hydrogen economy, renewable energy, and nuclear power ecosystem in order to discuss strategies to decarbonize key manufacturing sectors by leveraging the strength of both countries and to jointly enter new markets. We also expect to work together with Australian government and BCSD Australia to build the platform for a hydrogen alliance to secure resources overseas across the entire hydrogen life cycle and increase the number of research bases so that the platform can serve as a catalyst for Korean businesses to be at the very forefront of eco-friendly market. Since we also intend to explore ways to cooperate with governments around the world, in addition to collaborations, we expect Ministry of Environment, the co-host of this event, to work closely with us in creating a new global business ecosystem in line with ESG principles. Second, we should leverage guidelines on greenhouse gas reductions across the entire value chain, including the use of low-carbon products by businesses, so that business community can position itself as a global standard setter and lead global ESG standards in step with the government efforts. Also, November of last year, in collaboration with the Korean Iron and Steel Association, the KBCSD issued guidelines on calculating and reporting social greenhouse gas reductions for the Korean steelmaking industry, and communicated the industry's efforts at reducing carbon emissions in the supply chain to the business community, government agencies, and state-run institutions and parliaments and global networks in 66 countries. To ensure a transition to a carbon-neutral production system and give back to the community, we should place top priority on expanding the guideline to more sectors like cement and tire production, in addition to steelmaking and petrochem, so that the entire society acknowledges the commitment of the business community in reducing the impact of the supply chain on the environment. Another priority should be to lead the creation of international standards that take into account the specificities of Korean businesses by using trustworthy platforms such as the Partnership for Carbon Transparency, which was started by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development in cooperation with consulting firm McKinsey & Co. and more than 30 member companies to establish standards for greenhouse gas reduction in the supply chain. In particular, the business community should actively participate in discussions at home and abroad to establish globally accepted norms, including methods of calculating reductions in the supply chain, allocation principles, and baseline setting for individual products. It should also work with the government and the National Assembly to help create a policy framework to allow the greenhouse gas reduction efforts of the business community to be duly recognized. Finally, the government and the business community should strengthen their cooperation on ESG and supply chain issues to lead the formulation of ESG standards in an increasingly environmentally conscious global trade sector. In the short term, we hope to discuss with the government policy support for technical investment to popularize low-carbon products and services in the global economy, as well as provide incentives for participation in net zero initiatives to ensure that the government and the business community engage in a joint response to international carbon regulations, such as carbon border tax and ESG due diligence on the supply chain. From the mid to long-term perspective, the public and private sector should work together to expand the renewable energy infrastructure needed to meet RE100 targets and participate in discussions on CF100 standardization by taking advantage of Korea's technological advantage in the field of carbon-free energy, such as nuclear power. For its part, KBCSD will help the business community through a variety of policy channels so that Korean businesses can navigate the environmental trade barriers of different countries by adopting adequate ESG strategies for the supply chain. I will also strive to ensure that the public and private sectors work closely to create a green supply chain around the world. I hope the 3 suggestions that I have made today will lay the groundwork for the Korean and global business communities to create ESG value, and I ask for your undivided support from government, business leaders who are represented here today. Thank you.
서명수 명예회장님.
Thank you very much, Honorary Chairman Ho, for your introductory remarks. Next, we'd like to hear from Deputy Executive Director Mary Warlick, who will be discussing transforming the world's energy systems towards net zero, implication for the business sector to accelerate clean energy technology innovation. Deputy Executive Director Warlick has extensive experience in global energy, diplomacy, and also local experience and expertise in Russia and Ukraine. She has led the Bureau of Energy Resources at the State Department of the United States for a long time and was the U.S. representative to IEA, and last year was named Deputy Executive Director.
Mr. Han, Chairman Lee, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure to be with you to share my thoughts on global energy markets and the outlook for the energy transition. We are in the midst of the first truly global energy crisis. It is impacting all regions, all countries, and all fuels. I cannot recall a moment when energy has been so front and center in the public debate as it is today. Unfortunately, within that debate, there are a number of mistaken ideas that are dangerously wrong. The first mistaken idea is that Russia is somehow winning the energy battle. Now, Russia is undoubtedly a huge energy supplier, and the spikes in oil and gas prices triggered by its invasion of Ukraine have resulted in an uptick in its energy income for now. But the short-term revenue gain for Russia is more than offset by the loss of trust and loss of markets that the country faces for many years to come. Now, the second mistaken idea is that this is somehow a clean energy crisis. That, in our view, is simply not true. No country complains about having too much clean energy. Quite the opposite. There are regrets in many countries that they did not go faster with the deployment of renewables, expanding nuclear, or improvements in energy efficiency. Faster transitions would have helped to ease this crisis, and they represent the best way out of it. The third mistaken idea is that today's crisis is a huge setback for the prospects of tackling climate change. Now, we at the International Energy Agency do not believe this to be true. In practice, we have the chance to make this a historic turning point towards a cleaner and more secure energy system. And many parts of the world have already taken steps in that direction, with major policy announcements, including Korea, which is giving new momentum to clean energy technologies through its Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth Act. And there's the REPower EU package in the European Union and its Fit for 55 plan. In addition, the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, and the growth of renewables in China, India, and elsewhere. Now, make no mistake, the situation in energy markets globally could get even tougher in the months ahead, but there are good reasons for some legitimate optimism at the same time. The oil shocks of the 1970s led to major advances in how we produce and use energy, and today's crisis, we believe, can drive similar changes. So let me share with you just a few examples. If countries around the world fulfill their pledges, we expect electric car sales to see a 6-fold increase by 2030 relative to today's levels. In the 3 largest car markets in the world, China, USA, and the EU, every second car sold in 2030 will be an electric vehicle. And for renewables, 2022 is on track to be a record year, with electricity capacity additions expected to amount to about 340 gigawatts. And the overall share of wind and solar PV in total power generation is set to increase from 10% to 30% by 2030. And total offshore wind capacity could increase by 6-fold by 2030. Global PV capacity could increase by 4-fold over the period, a capacity enough to generate more than current total U.S. electricity generation. Now, the pipelines for both carbon capture and storage and hydrogen continue to gain momentum as well. Today, there are around 300 CCUS projects in various stages of development. Electrolyzer manufacturing capacity has doubled since last year to nearly 8 gigawatt per year. And the heat pump market is also expanding significantly. The global stock has been increasing at 10% per year, and we are now seeing even stronger growth. So it's very encouraging to see how much attention governments are starting to give to energy efficiency and energy saving, ranging from a new Energy Conservation Act in India to major funding announcements in Europe, and of course major efforts being made in Korea. And finally, with respect to nuclear power, recent announcements and policy changes, including in the United States, Belgium, and Korea, have pushed up our forecast at the IEA for nuclear by about 10% in 2030. And all of these developments make me optimistic about the clean energy transition. However, at the same time, we must also ensure that transitions are also secure and affordable. And in this regard, I would like to highlight 3 messages that are important globally, but also have major implications for Korea. First, a major push on scaling up clean energy investment offers a lasting solution to the immediate energy crisis while cutting emissions. And the key reason for today's crisis relates to investment. Simply put, the world is not investing enough to meet for future energy needs. Fossil fuel investment was subdued in the second half of the 2010s, while clean energy spending did not pick up. And something has to change in order to avoid an energy-starved world characterized by continued price volatility. The way forward, it seems to us, is clear. A major boost in clean energy spending across all technologies and all markets is very much needed. In the net zero emissions by 2050 scenario, more than $8 is spent on clean energy by 2030 for every $1 spent on fossil fuels. And simply cutting fossil fuel investments without major investments in clean energy poses serious risks to energy security, including the threat of high and volatile fuel prices as we are seeing today. Moreover, the investment gap between advanced economies and developing economies is another major fault line in global efforts to meet climate goals. Despite having 2/3 of the global population, clean energy investment in emerging market and developing economies, excluding China, account for less than 1/5 of the total. This requires urgent solutions to channel financing toward clean energy transitions in these economies. Second, shifting to net zero presents a major market opportunity, but this also requires reliable supplies of critical minerals. And mobilizing a large-scale investment in clean energy looks challenging, but the investment required to secure clean energy transitions offers an unprecedented level of market opportunity to equipment manufacturers, service providers, developers, and engineering, procurement, and construction companies along the entire supply chain. In the net zero pathway, the combined size of the market for wind turbines, solar panels, lithium-ion batteries, electrolyzers, and fuel cells represents a cumulative market opportunity to 2050 worth $27 trillion. As a major player in the production of batteries and solar panels, Korea is very well placed to capitalize on this huge market opportunity while contributing to diverse and resilient clean energy supply chains. However, it also requires increased attention to reliable supplies of critical minerals such as copper, lithium, and nickel. High and volatile critical minerals prices and highly concentrated supply chains could delay energy transitions or make them more costly. So minimizing this risk requires real action to scale up and diversify supplies alongside recycling, technology innovation, and other measures to moderate demand growth. Finally, achieving net zero goals relies on a much more rapid pace of technology innovation. In the net zero pathway, almost half the reductions in CO2 emissions come from technologies that are currently at the demonstration or prototype phase. And this requires governments to increase and reprioritize their spending on research and development, as well as on demonstrating clean energy technologies by putting them at the core of energy and climate policy. Now we're seeing growing efforts by governments and businesses to boost a wide range of frontier technologies such as advanced batteries, electrolyzers for hydrogen and advanced biofuels, and Korea is clearly demonstrating its leadership in many of these areas. While this is encouraging more and faster innovation through strong and targeted research and development is essential to achieve our net zero targets. Now we recognize that the energy crisis is still far from over, and there are some tough challenges ahead, no doubt, especially this coming winter. But Russia is not winning the energy war, and efforts to tackle climate change are not doomed. The energy crisis of the 1970s resulted in major progress in energy efficiency, nuclear power, solar, and wind. And today's crisis, we believe, can have a similar impact and help speed up the shift to a cleaner energy system. The International Energy Agency stands ready to support all countries, including Korea, as they accelerate their journeys towards a more sustainable and secure energy future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Executive Director Mary Warwick, for your keynote speech. We will now move on to CEO Insight session. We will shed light on government policies to further enhance ESG competitiveness, and we will talk about the topic of innovation of green supply chain. We have invited many experts from both home and abroad, and we will listen to their insight. First, I would like to invite Vice Minister Yoo Jae-chul from Ministry of Environment, who is also the co-host of today's forum. He will talk about policies for carbon neutral and ESG business practices. Please, Vice Minister. Please welcome him with a warm round of hand. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Vice Minister from Ministry of Environment, Yoo Jae-chul. It's a great personal honor for me to be given this opportunity to present before this gathering. I will be talking about carbon neutrality and green growth. And as you know, yesterday, mentioned by Chairman Kim, the Green Growth Commission and Committee has been formed, and it's going to play an important role as a forebearer in terms of achieving the carbon neutral commitment that the government has pledged. In terms of the policy direction that the government is currently envisioning to take, would like to walk through some of the key aspects. First, let's take a look at some of the extreme weather patterns. This is something that we are experiencing quite frequently, and over the course of this year, there's been significant damages that we have experienced across the world. The average temperature in Korea this spring was 13.2 degrees Celsius, which was 1 degree higher compared to average. This was the hottest spring ever. And also there was a torrential rain in 2020. There was inundation and flooding at Gangnam area in Sindorim district. Also, there were heat waves across Europe. There were flood and heavy snow in many areas across the globe. So it is actually a climate crisis, not just a climate change. Then what is a climate change? Climate change is a long-term change in climate that lasts for decades or more. So this is a terminology that is based on objective criteria. Now, climate crisis is defined as bringing irreversible changes to the global climate system and also bringing very high threats to human. In terms of the severity and the urgency of climate crisis and the need to respond, this aspect has been emphasized by the heads of states across the world. And Korea is not an exception. Currently, about 130 countries around the world has made net zero pledges. But after such pledges, since there is no policy coordination across and amongst these nations, when it comes to certain circumstances, there are companies who actually relocate their manufacturing base to other regions and jurisdictions, hence triggering the issue of carbon leakage. If carbon leakage takes place, then the impact of policy is going to be undermined, and in order to prevent that, we need to make sure that there is a comparable level of reduction obligation that is levied even outside one specific jurisdiction. So if you look at EU, they have adopted a mechanism called CBAM, short for Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Basically, it aims to ensure ambitious climate mitigation policies to make sure that it doesn't undermine EU business competitiveness. And what they are doing is that in terms of the companies who are making exports into EU, they have to meet certain criteria and they need to gain certain certification based on a requirement. For instance, if Korean companies are making exports to EU, if there's more carbon emissions, basically, we would need to bear the relevant costs. I'm sure you know all of these information better than I do, but because this is a very important issue to take note of, I just wanted to take the opportunity to emphasize that these are some of the things that our companies need to be prepared for. ESG recently has gained a lot of interest across the world. The trend itself, especially the interest in ESG, has been rising quite steeply. In 2006, there was an announcement of PRI, Principle for Responsible Investment, and since then, more interest. We have been experiencing more interest on this topic. And also, there is stronger call for information disclosure as well. And there are international standards that are being set to make that information disclosure mandatory. And of the ESG-related pillars, there is a stronger call for disclosure of information on environment pillar. Companies are coming up with a lot of policies regarding ESG management, and they are publishing sustainability report as well. And from the entire supply chain perspective, we also need to respond to the need for conducting due diligence across supply chain. So let me briefly go a little in more detail about the supply chain due diligence. In 2017, one moment, please. Since 2017, TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, made recommendations with respect to financial disclosures, meaning all the environmental-related financial information needs to be voluntarily disclosed, and we've seen such activities over the years. And also, there is a task force on nature-related financial disclosure. This is a similar type of a task force put in place, and basically they're also going to release recommendations in 2023 following the footsteps of TCFD, and currently they are developing those relevant guidelines. And also IFRS is a foundation. It's a non-for-profit standard-setting foundation, and they're also working on international standards, and they will be releasing the standards come 2023. And these are some of the international standards that one can refer to in regards to ESG disclosure. And EU adopted from 2021 a standard for voluntary disclosure for sustainable finance disclosure, and also EU issued sustainability reporting directive as well, and we believe that this will have impact on Korean companies as well. Looking at EU's corporate sustainability due diligence, basically they have made it mandatory for companies to conduct due diligence, corporate due diligence, and the EU Parliament adopted a resolution mandating due diligence, and also member states would have to transpose that directive into national laws. And Germany had already done that. They have already enacted the relevant laws, and it will come into effect starting 2023. Now, the directive will be applied to not just the EU companies, but also non-EU companies that fall under certain criteria. For instance, if you're a non-EU company, there may be some other constraints, and they will be subject to different set of rules, but we expect there will be about 4,000 companies that will be subject to this new directive for non-EU companies. Now, let's take a look at the government's policy support in order to support carbon neutrality and to further strengthen ESG competitiveness. First, looking at emissions trading scheme, from 2019, under the name of ETS, we have been operating the emission trading scheme. We do need to further advance this in a phased manner, and we are in the process of coming up with plans to expand into other areas such as auctioning as well as benchmarking-based allocation. We plan to bring about improvement in the overall framework. This is a way for us to further make the emissions trading scheme more effective and efficient. And also, in order to provide support for developing mitigation technologies and to commercialize them, we will also continue to expand support for installing emissions reduction facilities. And if a company makes investment into low-carbon technology, government will provide some support and subsidize those efforts as well. And then moving on to K taxonomy. Basically, this is a taxonomy that helps us to define 69 economic activities into sectors that contribute to green growth. And recently, we've come up with a draft for nuclear power plant, and that currently is being worked on as we speak. The green activities, which fall under K taxonomy, must do no significant harm in other environmental-related pledges, and also it must meet minimum requirement to provide safeguard against human rights, labor, safety, and environment. So there are minimum requirements that green economic activities must comply with and satisfy. Only then those economic activities can enjoy relevant incentives. Now, there will be assessment as to whether certain activity can be qualified as green. There will be a process of evaluation to make appropriate assessment. In terms of adoption of K taxonomy, we would further identify areas where we would need to make improvements in order to improve adaptability. From April, together with 4 companies and 6 commercial banks, we are at this point running a pilot program. And because K taxonomy includes various specific and specialized information, financial institutions and companies are asking many questions. So in order for us to help people better understand K taxonomy, we are in the process of writing up a green taxonomy guidebook. Next is environmental information disclosure system. From 2014, under the relevant laws, we are operating this system. For public institutions and for companies, they are subject to this rule. And starting this year, if you are a listed company of assets above 2 trillion, you're mandated to disclose such information. We expect that there will be 19 to 29 items by entities which will be subject to disclosure obligation, and basically these companies would have to submit and prepare the environmental information to Korea Environmental Industry Technology Institute, and those information will be published in December. We also need to improve on this disclosure system. We are going to further expand on the companies that are subject to such disclosure based on the size of their assets to make sure that our disclosure system does meet the global standard. And in terms of companies who are newly publishing such information, we want to make sure that we can incentivize them and support them so that they can maintain that level of transparency. Lastly, ESG is now expanding from a company level to the entire supply chain. So from the production of the product up until the wastage of those products, LCA, the life cycle-based management, has become very important. So life cycle assessment is a comprehensive assessment, and we are in the process of developing relevant methodologies. There are multiple methods that can be used. We plan to update those. So by 2030, we wish to develop 120 methodologies on priority target products group by 2030. Also, LCIDB database is currently being developed. We will develop and revise the domestic LCIDB and register it in the UNEP's international platform. MOLIT and relevant ministries and authorities are currently working together to bring this to effect. Lastly, in order to prepare for the supply chain due diligence, we are providing support to medium-sized and small-sized companies. And for SMEs, there are a lot of funding programs in place, and Ministry of Environment is taking the lead in providing necessary financing to smaller scale companies. Climate crisis is aggravating day by day. It is not a problem of choice, but it is ESG management is essential in this day and age, and it requires significant amount of preparation for us to effectively respond to this challenge. MOE will do its utmost to play our part and provide the support that is required. Thank you very much. That was the presentation on government's policy support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Next, we'd like to hear from Shin Hak-cheol, Vice Chairman and CEO of LG Chem, on LG Chem's innovative approach to making its global supply chains more sustainable and profitable, on LG Chem's sustainable innovation and leadership. Mr. Shin has been working on ESG since 2019 for LG Chem. He has successfully reorganized the business portfolio of LG Chem in that future direction and is taking the lead on solidifying a future growth base.
Minister of Environment Environment, Mr. Kyong-Ho Lee, KBCSD Chairman, distinguished guests. It is my great pleasure and honor to share with you how our company, LG Chem, is approaching the issue of ESG and sustainability. Back in 2019, LG Chem established a comprehensive sustainability roadmap and plan. It was important to lay out the big picture very clearly and strategically to clarify our approach around the issue of ESG and sustainability. So there are three. The first was the fact that we have to preemptively declare our 2050 commitment and then find a way to get there. And secondly, we will use this as an opportunity to build a significant business around ESG and sustainability. And finally, if we need to do it anyways, let's take the global leadership role in driving sustainability as a responsible global enterprise. Our goal consists of 5 very specific targets. Achieve 2030 carbon neutral growth goal and 2050 carbon net zero goal. Achieve RE100 status for all of our global manufacturing sites by 2050. Aggressively move towards building circular economy and achieve zero landfill for all of our global manufacturing plants, and ensure that our entire supply chain becomes ethical, clean, and sustainable. So here is our 2050 carbon net zero commitment roadmap. In 2019, we emitted 9.5 million metric tons of CO2, which is our baseline. BAU calls for this figure to go up to 20 million tons by 2050. So we have to reduce it to zero. In other words, a reduction of 20 million tons each year by 2050. Our interim checkpoint is 2030. That's a neutrality milestone. That means we have to limit 2030 figure to less than our baseline figure, which is 9.5 million tons. To achieve this aggressive target, we have established a detailed reduction plan. We deployed all known tactics, including direct reduction, indirect reduction, and compensatory tactics as well. For the short-term 2030 goal, we used all practical measures like fuel switching from fossil fuel to biomass and hydrogen, increase energy efficiency, and drive RE100 adoption in every possible plant around the world. I think we have visibility at this point how to achieve 2030 goal. For above and beyond 2030 to achieve 2050 net zero goal, we are still working on some details because a significant part of the reduction has to come from technological breakthrough, such as carbon capture and utilization technology that we are developing very aggressively at LG Chem. To measure and track carbon footprint from every product we make at LG Chem, we embarked on life cycle assessment for all of our product lines. This was a 2-year journey. As a result, we will complete LCA for all of our products manufactured globally by the first half of 2023. This LCA data shall include Scope 1, 2, and Scope 3 as well. We are aggressively and methodically converting existing plants around the world to RE100 one by one. All of our overseas manufacturing plants will be RE100 by 2030, and all of our domestic sites will be RE100 by 2050. In Korea, where renewable energy infrastructure is still relatively limited in terms of availability and pricing, we are working with local governments and power producers to actively participate in green premium pricing system and renewable energy certificate, in addition to our own effort to accelerate RE100 conversion in our plant. We are also developing breakthrough technology in carbon capture and utilization. The process to collect CO2 from the pyrolysis process and mixing it with methane, which is another byproduct, and convert the mixture to hydrogen using catalyst technology is a very useful way to address the greenhouse gas. We are already building 50,000 tons of steam methane reformer plant in our Daesan site as we speak. If we summarize all of this, we are literally talking about creating circular economy business model. This business model becomes bio-based raw material is used to produce sustainable products using renewable energy, and used products are recycled back to become raw material again. Regarding Scope 3 emission, which represents about 60% of our total emission, we will include Scope 3 in our net zero commitment. We are focusing on upstream Scope 3 emission at the moment, and we are in the process of developing comprehensive tracking and reporting mechanism from all of our suppliers. We are also committed to Clean Metal 100 initiative and strictly follow responsible sourcing policy for all of our raw materials, especially raw metals like cobalt, nickel, and lithium that are used for battery component manufacturing. As I explained at the beginning, we are also trying to use this decarbonization landscape to build a very substantial business around ESG and sustainability. We will invest $3 billion in sustainable materials, $6 billion in battery materials, and $1 billion in building innovative global new drug portfolio. We are creating sustainable product portfolio, including biodegradable plastics that come from corns and sugar canes, as well as bio-balanced products using renewable feedstock. We acquired ISCC Plus certification for about 50 bio-balanced products that we have commercialized already. We are also investing heavily on recycling opportunities. We have already commercialized many mechanically recycled products, such as PCR ABS or PCl polycarbonate. We are now aggressively investing in chemical recycling technology development. We will start pilot-scale manufacturing of chemical recycling plant from 2023. To differentiate all of our new eco-friendly new products that we started to commercialize, we created an umbrella brand that we call Net Zero brand. Net Zero will also promote consumer awareness and brand recognition of this type of sustainable and eco-friendly product. So to summarize all this, we are excited about our 2050 Net Zero journey, as we have a clear strategy and detailed execution plan to get there. We think that this will be the single biggest competitive advantage that will differentiate LG Chem from others in many years and decades to come. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman, for the presentation. The last presenter of this session is MP Aswin, who is head of supply chain from Google Cloud. Before joining Google, she worked in Unilever for 24 years and worked as a supply chain expert. And she's been selected as top 100 women's leader selected by B2G Consulting in the area of supply chain. Today, we will hear about Google's data platform. Ms. MP Aswin.
The fight for a livable planet will be won or lost this decade. Good morning, everyone. My name is MP Aswin, and I lead the industry solutions for supply chain and logistics for Google Cloud. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to thank the Ministry of Environment and the Korea Business Council for Sustainable Development for inviting Google and creating this wonderful opportunity for like-minded organizations and individuals to share ideas, experiences, and learn from one another. At Google, we strive to build sustainability in everything we do. We start with ourselves. How can we operate our businesses more sustainably? And this goes beyond achieving carbon neutrality in our operations. We have an ambitious 10-year strategy for climate action that goes beyond our own operation. Beyond Google's own operation, our impact is far greater by sharing our technology, products, and methods to empower and support partners from businesses to public sector as we all transition to carbon-free energy. Through our products, we want to enable everyone to make sustainable choices every day and be part of the solution. An example would be the lower carbon emission flights that we make available in Google Flights, or the eco-friendly routes that we have also made available in Google Maps. To better understand Google's sustainability journey, let's watch this video. Sustainability has been Google's core value since it was founded 2 decades ago. We're the first major company that achieved a carbon neutral operation in 2007, and the first major company to match 100% of its energy consumption with renewable energy. That means that every Gmail that you send, every question you ask Google search, every YouTube video you watch, every time you use Google Maps, there is net zero carbon emission. But it's not just about converting everything to renewable energy. We also continuously improve the energy efficiency of our data centers. In fact, our data centers right now is 2 times more efficient than an average data center. So using artificial intelligence and machine learning in partnership with DeepMind, we actually were able to have 7 times the compute energy using the same electricity we have 5 years ago. But we are not stopping there. In our 3rd decade of climate action, it is our most ambitious and aggressive ever. We aim to achieve carbon-free energy every hour of every day, 24/7. So why is carbon-free energy every hour significant and important? Because there are times of the day when the sun does not shine and the wind does not blow, and we have to rely on fossil fuel-based energy from the grid. The illustration you see is our Iowa's data center. The block bar you see represents our energy load. And the green spikes that you see is the renewable energy that we purchase. If you would notice, there are times wherein there's excess capacity, and there are times when there is gap in capacity. And there lies the real challenge. How do we ensure that our grids could supply carbon-free energy every hour, every day of the year? I'm proud to share that as of 2020, Google has reached 67% carbon-free energy every hour across its global operations. And during the same year, 5 of our data centers already achieved carbon-free energy every hour. Our approach in achieving 24/7 carbon-free energy is threefold. First, we expand our purchasing scope to avail of different types of clean energy available, including more controversial topics like nuclear. We work with our providers in capturing the hourly dynamics of renewable energy that they provide and actively work on local deployment. Secondly, we support the development and commercialization of new technologies to decarbonize electricity systems. An example of this is our partnership with Fervo Energy for commercialization of geothermal energy. Lastly, we support advancing policy changes that accelerates the decarbonization of the electricity grid. Okay, this is a mouthful, time-based energy attribute certificates. Time-based energy attribute certificates, or TEACs, is an early approach to clean energy certification. And this is an example of how we are using advocacy in clean energy certification to accelerate the decarbonization of the grid. The illustration you see on the right shows a granular breakdown by the hour of the wind intensity available and broken down every day of the month, as opposed to what we are having right now as a blanket approach of renewable energy certificates. We believe by getting much more granular, looking at this level of detail, we actually accelerate the decarbonization of the grid and at the same time incentivize the actions that are needed where it matters the most. Let me now move on beyond Google's operation and talk about how we are helping industries and communities address their sustainability challenges. And this is done together with the technical partners that I have listed on the slide in front of you. There are 4 key areas. The first one is in achieving digital sustainability through the greening of their IT. This meant that for companies who move their on-premise IT workload to Google Cloud, they would achieve net zero emission. but we also provide the transparency to capture the real carbon emission of the company by providing tracking, visualization, and analytics to understand where the improvement areas are for IT emissions. The second area is in building agile and sustainable value chain. Across many industry sectors, supply chains account for about 80% of the total greenhouse gas emission. So we're supporting businesses in identifying where their emissions are and help them in reducing. The third is in supporting ESG process transformation. Institutions are challenged with getting the right data and tools to have an informed view of the sustainability actions that are needed for long-term value creation. We support institutions and organizations in bringing the various data sets together and the analytics to aid in decision making. Lastly, we support organizations as well in understanding and acting on climate risk exposures. And this is through our Google technology like Google Earth Engine, which I will share with you later. Let me zoom in and talk more about supply chain. Supply chains are very complex and complicated. As you can see in the middle row illustration, there is limited visibility from raw material sourcing till the product reaches the end consumer. Using the available Google Cloud technology, we are supporting businesses in addressing the 3 key sustainability goals outlined in the first row. So let's start from the left. First, reduce risk and enable a more sustainable sourcing by driving the needed transparency and traceability of the upstream raw material sourcing. Second, build resilience into the supply chain by providing supply chain visibility and intelligence across the end-to-end supply chain. And this comes in the form of digital supply chain twins that are acting as digital representation of the physical supply chain. Lastly, we help organizations embed artificial intelligence tools to reduce cost to serve and identify how to reduce waste in their operations. I spoke about Google Earth Engine. Google Earth Engine is an example of our technology. It is a planetary scale platform for Earth science data and analysis. It contains petabytes of geospatial information to provide real-world applications from studying deforestation to global surface water change. And these are valuable information to the research community and as well to businesses in operational business decision making. Let me expand our technology offering by sharing how we are using cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to model climate risk and resilience. In the first pictures that you see, using real-time traffic insights from maps and emission data from transportation and building, we are providing useful insights for supply chain network and infrastructure planning. In addition, Google's artificial intelligence and machine learning models support real-time crisis response and preparation for things like flood prediction and wildfire mapping. What you see on the left-hand corner is a simulation of flood. And these are the type of technology that we are providing to help organizations with both the insight and foresight needed in planning. I spoke a lot about technology, but it's better for me to bring our technology to life by providing and sharing some real-life examples. Let me start with PayPal. PayPal is a leading digital payment platform that moved its on-premise IT workload to Google Cloud to achieve net zero emissions. And because of the flexibility and they need to flex up and down, we also help provide that flexibility to PayPal. And this is especially relevant during and after shopping events where their workloads changes. The second one is Carrefour. Carrefour is one of the largest grocery retail chains in Europe. They use Google Analytics to better match demand and supply and ensure that they provide the right products at the right place and at the right time to reduce waste in their operations. The last one in this chart is SunPower. SunPower is a solar energy provider in California. Using Google Cloud's machine learning and high-resolution satellite and digital surface data, SunPower created Instant Design, which allows homeowners and businesses to create their own solar roof designs in seconds. And this helps homeowners understand the amount of energy that they can get from solar energy. And this is important because this actually breaks the barrier to adoption. Lush. I've seen Lush near the hotel in one of the department store that is right beside the hotel. Lush is a British retailer popular for their bath products. They pioneered packaging-free products in their store. But packaging has its use as well. It provides product information. So using Google's technology, we help Lush launch Lush Lens, which is a virtual packaging app just using cameras on mobile phones and artificial intelligence to provide product information. Unilever is one of the leading global consumer product companies. They are a key user of palm, which is sourced from Indonesia, which is a key ingredient they use for laundry and beauty products. They wanted to ensure 100% deforestation-free source of palm in their supply chain. So we help Unilever with Google Earth Engine by providing satellite information, understanding where are the deforestation risks in the forest in Indonesia. We help them with the visibility, traceability, and transparency needed from the time the palm fruit is harvested from the tree to the time it was transported to the first mill, making sure that the palm that they are sourcing is indeed coming from a non-deforested source versus the conventional approach of just getting certificates, which are reliant on spot audits. The last example I have is UPS. UPS is a leading global parcel provider that exists across 220 countries, delivering 24 million packages daily. So using Google Smart Analytics platform, we help UPS, together with real-time traffic insights, be able to have much more efficient planning of their deliveries. And this generated 10 million gallons of fuel savings every year. And the beauty with saving those is there is an equivalent amount of money saved. And at the time of this chart's preparation, it was about $400 million of savings generated for UPS every year. I would like to end with this message. Sustainability is a data challenge that requires collaboration, innovation, and commercial flexibility as we all transition to carbon-free energy systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ampi Aswin of Google Cloud. Let's give all of our speakers for the CEO Insight session another big round of applause. We'd like to take a short break. We will see you back here at 11:10. Following the break, we will have a special talks session where we will hear from speakers talking about fostering collaboration across value chain partners in low carbon technology and projects, a session moderated by Kim Kyo-hyun, CEO and Vice Chairman of Lotte Chemical. I'd like to ask you to stay with us until the end.
환경에 해로움을 제로, 탄소 배출 순증가를 제로, 지속 가능한 지구를 위한 제로, 렛제로. LG화학도 해냄. 세상에는 LG화학이 해내야 하는 친환경이 있습니다. LG화학 렛제로.
Let's ask everyone to please come inside and take your seats. We will soon resume the forum.
회의를 계속
Ladies and gentlemen, we will resume the forum. Please take your seats.
이번 특별 대담
For this special talk session, we will be discussing fostering collaboration across value chain partners in low carbon technology and projects. And this will be moderated by Kim Kyo-hyun, CEO and Vice Chairman of Lotte Chemical. Mr. Kim has served in the petrochemical industry for about 38 years. He was a global leader in this industry and has been leading the ESG vision establishment and ESG management for the Lotte Group at large. While the Vice Chairman and the speakers are coming up to the stage, I'd like to ask you to please greet them with a big round of applause.
큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
Please give them a big hand.
홍현정 사무총장님 소개
Thank you very much, Director Hong, for your introduction.
자장을 맡은
I will be moderating this session. I am CEO and Vice Chairman of Lotte Chemical, Kyo-hyun Kim.
이번 세션의 주제는
The topic for this session is on international partnership to gain an upper hand in value chain of low carbon new business. As mentioned by Deputy Executive Director of IEA, the energy crisis that we are seeing from Europe is speeding up transition to carbon neutral economy, and I believe that it will provide an unprecedented level of opportunities for both upstream and downstream markets across the value chain. And also, major countries' policies are supporting such transition. In European Union and in Korea, we have adopted the green taxonomy, which defines the green activities in the areas of renewable energy, nuclear power plant, and green hydrogen. And also, United States has recently adopted Inflation Reduction Act that provides tax credits in the areas of clean energy and green hydrogen. As such, we believe that there will be a fierce competition across nations to gain dominance in the hydrogen as well as nuclear energy segment, including the overall renewable energy sector. It is hence important for all the economic actors to enter into strategic partnerships, especially for companies to cooperate and collaborate with market leaders across the value chain in the low carbon and new business areas. Also, proprietary technology development is important, but at the same time, there would need to be close cooperation between businesses and countries to further enhance competitiveness across the value chain, especially with countries and companies that have capabilities in financing and also the material sourcing capabilities. In this session, we will conduct special talk with key speakers in areas of hydrogen and SMRs, and also partners across the value chain in the eco-friendly business ecosystem. We will look at various business practices that will help us all enjoy a win-win through such technological tie-ups. We have speakers from Australia who is known to be at the very forefront of green or clean hydrogen production. We also have a key player from the United States in the SMR business, and we will be able to share relevant strategies that will help us set global standards and also for us to strengthen our positioning in the global carbon neutral market. I would like to ask that you please keep to the 15-minute time limit. The first presentation will be delivered by Kyong-Ho, who is the CEO of Hyundai Oil Bank. Please welcome him with a warm round of hands.
Mr. Kyong-Ho is talking about clean energy transition on clean fuels and biofuels, and he's currently working on expanding this clean energy portfolio. And today he will be discussing Hyundai Oil Bank's hydrogen vision. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kyong-Ho of Hyundai Oil Bank. I'm the Vice Chairman and CEO. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very distinguished forum. I'd like to begin my presentation on Hyundai Oil Bank and the Hyundai Group at large, specifically about the hydrogen vision for our group and our company. At Hyundai Oil Bank, we are a subsidiary or an affiliate company of the Hyundai Heavy Industries. As you can see here, the holding structure has changed to HD recently, and there are three sectors under HD Hyundai. Shipbuilding is first. As you know, we are one of the leading shipbuilders. There's KSOE, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Hyundai Mipo, and Hyundai Samho as subsidiaries in this business area. Under construction equipment, as you can see here, the holding company is Hyundai Genuine. Under Hyundai Genuine, they are responsible for building and supplying forklifts and other different heavy machinery such as Hyundai Construction Equipment, and Hyundai Doosan Infracore are the subsidiaries underneath this business area. The third pillar is energy / petrochemicals. There is Hyundai Oil Bank, and underneath Hyundai Oil Bank, there are 5 subsidiaries. There is the ethylene 95 million plant that was begun construction as of the 12th of October of this year, together with Lotte, and this is owned by Hyundai Chemical with Royal Dutch Shell. We are working together at Hyundai Shell and Hyundai OCI, where we work together with OCI on supplying carbon black. And then there is Hyundai ENF. We are a Genco. And then there is Hyundai Cosmo, which is a petrochemical player. There are 5 subsidiaries, as you can see, under the energy pillar. Our HDO's 3 eco-friendly businesses pillars are hydrogen, white bio, and eco-friendly chemicals. As you well know, oil companies are currently being challenged right now, and with the existing petrochemical businesses and oil businesses, many of these players are trying to diversify the businesses into different directions, which is why we're moving into hydrogen, CCUS, and white bio as well. So these are next generation industries where we would use next generation fuels as well. In white bio, they will be making use of biodiesel and waste fuel. We are currently constructing the relevant production plants, and then the HVO business as well, where we use waste cooking oil and palm acid oil, are some of the areas that we are working on. Either we have begun construction or we will go into construction soon. Our production plant is in Seosan, Chungnam, which is about 150 kilometers from here. 1.2 million pyong, and we are currently working on landfill of about 200K pyong. We do have existing refineries, but also petrochemical plants where we will produce eco-friendly materials. And as you can see on the left-hand or the right-hand lower bottom, you see that we are currently constructing new sites where we will be producing green fuels such as bio and ammonia. On this slide, you would see 4 major levers to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. where we will work on the RE operation, which will be working on energy saving, and then there is RE capture, where we would capture carbon and reuse this carbon on different modules. RE capture, I can say it's a very difficult technology. In fact, there are not many available technologies at the moment, and so because we need to convert our CO2 into a more adoptable fuel that could have general purpose use, it's a difficult technology to develop. And then there is RE switch, where we will switch into eco-fuels, and then there is RE social, where we will engage in social activities. These are the four major levers, so to speak, for us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. As you know, Hyundai Group, or the heavy industries group, has a value chain that is ideal for shifting into hydrogen. We can produce green hydrogen overseas, and we can transport it domestically, make use of this hydrogen, and then sell the hydrogen domestically. We have the entire value chain at our disposal. The KSOE, Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering, can build offshore hydrogen plants where through electrolysis they can generate power, which can then lead to hydrogen. The electrolysis will lead to hydrogen, and then this will be liquefied, brought in through ships or by bunkers, or we can make use of ammonia to transport hydrogen to Korea, to the domestic market. This is something that KSOE can do within its portfolio, and as I mentioned before, we do have the subsidiary on construction equipment, such as Hyundai Genuine, so they can produce and supply the hydrogen forklifts and the hydrogen engines, which are currently in demo mode, that can help be the transport mechanisms, the transport modes for the hydrogen. And then once the ammonia is brought to Korea, we can supply the ammonia terminals. And even if the gas is transported on ammonia, we would have to break it down into hydrogen. Currently, that commercialization technology is not widely available, which is why we are currently engaging in R&D for ammonia cracking. And with ammonia cracking process, we can also work on hydrogen fuel cells and convert them into blue hydrogen that we can then supply to the greater market. So as you can see, we have this entire value chain that is quite ideal for the hydrogen economy. Last year, we announced the Hydrogen Dream 2030 roadmap, where across the total value chain of production, logistics, and application, we will have the hydrogen vision. And as I mentioned before, the different subsidiaries and the affiliates under HD Hyundai would each have a role to play. At Hyundai Oil Bank, we will make use of the synergy effect that would come across the entire group value chain so that we can have the production in the Middle East and Australia, and then turn them into use the ammonium. The ammonia will be self-produced on our end, and then that would be made use of the hydrogen decomposition catalyst technology. Together with the GENCOs under KEPCO, we are working on the transport process, and we are, as you can see here, making use of the different synergy effects that would arise out of the value chain for the entire hydrogen value chain. For hydrogen business, as you can see for the strategy, Aramco currently has a 70% equity stake in Hyundai Oil Bank, so that is why we are currently working together on ways to produce blue ammonia in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. In 2028, 2 million tons of blue ammonia would be produced from each of the production sites at Saudi Aramco. And we are working together on this project. And in the different oil and gas mines, we can make use of CCS to store carbon dioxide, and this is another project that we are currently preparing. As you can see on the bottom left, that is a picture of one of our production facilities, the current site for the ammonia terminal. We will have a sea landfill of about 200K. In fact, we have begun operations in this production facility as of last year. And then we have received a permit for the sea landfill of the 200K Pyong, and so we will begin a sea landfill, ocean landfill of this site, which means in 2026 or about 2027 or so, the landfill will be completed so that we can build a production plant there, and this plant would be responsible for producing the ammonia that we would need. As I mentioned before, for blue or green hydrogen, we would have to liquefy the hydrogen or bring it back on ammonia. But even if we do that, the ammonia would have to be cracked down so that we can capture the hydrogen, and this technology has to become more universal. Currently, we are using pyrolysis, and if you're using pyrolysis, if we do not use a catalyst, we have to decompose them at a high temperatures of about 600 degrees. But even with that, we can only have a 25% conversion rate. And so if we were to use the catalyst or try to increase yield, this is the technology that we have to currently work on building. We are engaging in R&D as well so that we can try to use a catalyst and have complete conversion under 500 degrees Celsius. We are currently almost ready for commercialization. And we are currently working with a catalyst maker, a global catalyst maker. On this, we are building a demo plant, and we believe that we can be ready for commercialization in 2025 when ammonia is imported, and that we can capture the hydrogen from this ammonia. Furthermore, at Hyundai Heavy Industries, we are also working on the hydrogen fuel propulsion ships. The propulsion ship is currently in the permit process, and the hydrogen fuel cell propulsion ship is something that we would have to engage in more research on. For CCUS technology, there are many different methodologies for the capturing of for carbon dioxide, but there are not many uses for utilization. For over 10 years or so, we have been working on R&D. There is a byproduct that comes out of GENCOs, and in this, if we can have a reaction with the carbon dioxide, that will lead to PCC. And if it's high pure PCC, this is something that can be used to create paper and pulp products at paper manufacturers. We are currently working on a demo plant. It's a pilot process where we are working on discussions with possible commercialization with a paper manufacturer. And currently, low-quality PCC can also be used by cement manufacturers as well. We have worked with Dalim DNC. Last year, we entered into an MOU so that possibly we can think about building a production facility that would make use of the PCC for cement additives. As you know, the vegetable business, overnight delivery of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, is a rapidly growing business, and there is a huge demand for dry ice by companies such as Market Curly and other different overnight delivery fresh produce companies, and so there is a huge demand for dry ice. And also, now that COVID restrictions have come down, there's many food that is being served in the flights, and many of these in-flight meals also require dry ice to be kept fresh, and that is why we have currently going to increase the build of a production facility to supply about 300,000 tons of dry ice. and also produce more PCC and other different materials for use in different additives. When making use of hydrogen as a fuel, this can also power mobility, and that is why we have been focusing on hydrogen fuel cells. We have completed the development of a separator, and we are currently working on placing a PEM. And that is why perhaps at the end of next year, we can be able to supply a polymer electrolyte membrane to battery makers, so that by 2027 or so, we can have a commercialization of these EPTFE materials or these hydrogen fuel cells. Because we are seeing fuel lack, shortage, such as LNG and etc., right now there's a lot of research being done on electrolysis, and we believe that hydrogen fuel cells can also be incorporated into electrolysis, so that we are also working on building another business on this as well. Together with the fuel cells, hydrogen fuel cells, there are many different kinds of hydrogen that makes a byproduct gas. KEPCO and different GENCOs are working together with us on planning different possible GENCOs that make use of hydrogen fuel. But the REC for hydrogen is going to be launched as of December of this year. So once there could be more RECs, these certificates for hydrogen, we can receive support and the business competitiveness will go up. And that is why we are going to wait until December, so that we will scale up from 20 mega to about 100 mega going forward on different stages, so that we can scale up across the whole system. As you know, we also have an LPC business with oil companies. We have about 2,500 gas stations, of about 470 of which we directly operate. There are hydrogen charging stations within our portfolio as well. We are currently working on rolling out some more hydrogen charging stations and EV charging stations and gas stations that could incorporate all of these different charging stations as well. Comprehensive charging stations for different cars, and as of December, mobile charging stations would be operated on a pilot basis. This means that perhaps a truck could transport high pressurized hydrogen and charge hydrogen cars directly, and this is going to begin pilot stage operations in December of this year. Hyundai Oil Bank and for Hyundai Heavy Industries, this is the entire hydrogen roadmap across the group for 2022, 25, and 28. We'll take a phased approach, as you can see here on this slide, preparing different businesses to meet these targets. Hopefully, the hydrogen economy in Korea can become fully established soon. Hyundai Oil Bank and the Hyundai Heavy Industries and the Hyundai Group at large will prepare so that we can make a significant contribution. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was a presentation on biofuel and also low carbon solutions, especially hydrogen, as well as fuel cell development. And your hydrogen vision was very much inspiring. Thank you very much for that presentation. We now move on to the second presenter, Director General Paul Martin from Australia's Queensland Department of Energy. Many of Korean companies are currently expanding into Queensland of Australia, as it is a state where there's a lot of activities regarding hydrogen project. Today we have invited Director General Paul Martin, who's going to talk about the roadmap of renewable energy and hydrogen industry in Australia's Queensland, and also he will shed light on future cooperation with Korea.
Before I begin, it's customary in Queensland to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which I'm speaking to you today. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. It's a great pleasure to have the opportunity today to address the Korea Business Council for Sustainable Development's 4th Sustainable Business Innovation Forum. My name is Paul Martin. I am the Director General of the Queensland Department of Energy and Public Works. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Minister for Energy, Renewables and Hydrogen and Minister for Public Works and Procurement, the Honourable Victor Brenny, who apologises for not being able to be with you today. It's my pleasure to acknowledge Korea's Ministry of Environment and Minister Ms Wha-Jin as a co-host of the forum, KBCSD Chairman Mr Kyong-Ho, and distinguished members and guests. It's an exciting time in Queensland as we have just released a world-leading energy and jobs plan and announced a 70% renewable energy target by 2032, which will lead to massive developments in our renewable sector. My previous role was as Chief Executive Officer of Trade and Investment Queensland, so I have an intimate understanding and appreciation of the close relationship between our two countries, and I'm very excited about what the future holds. I'd also like to acknowledge that it's been 21 years since Queensland became the first Australian state to open a trade office in Korea. Korea is now Queensland's 3rd largest goods export market. Our exports to Korea are the highest of any Australian state or territory, worth more than $18.5 billion in the year to July 2022. Korea is also one of the largest sources for foreign investment for Queensland, particularly when it comes to resources and renewables. Korea is today a global leader and standard bearer when it comes to decarbonisation and the development of renewable hydrogen. Queensland's long been a trusted energy exporter to Korea with our coal, our gas assets and our exporting infrastructure. Developing a world-class export industry for green hydrogen and its derivatives, including green ammonia, is a logical and natural progression in our close working relationship. Of course, we're already collaborating in multiple renewable and hydrogen projects that harness Queensland's abundant renewable resources to help the world decarbonise industry, transport and energy, and importantly, to address the climate change challenges that we must all face together. In September this year, it was announced that the Kyong-Ho Consortium, Korea Australia, is working together to realise the full potential of renewable hydrogen and ammonia in Townsville and North Queensland. This consortium includes long-term Queensland investor Korea Zinc, as well as Arc Energy and Korean partners SK Gas and Hanwha Impact. Their proposed multi-billion-dollar project could see 1.1 million tonnes per annum of renewable ammonia exported from North Queensland and used to generate green power in Korea. The Honourable Cameron Dick, Treasurer and Minister for Trade and Investment, recently visited South Korea, and while he was there, he witnessed a Memorandum of Understanding signing between the Korea Midland Power, Alexeed, Aegis Asset Management, LS Electric and Sinhan Bank, who have formed a renewables and hydrogen development consortia to develop projects in Queensland, including the Cumberilla Renewable Energy Park, KREP, project in Western Downs, Queensland. Also, Korea East West Power is leading the development of the Kollumbula Solar Farm, one of the largest Korean investments into Australian renewables. This project is expected to be completed this year and provide 202 megawatts of clean energy into our grid. Korea East West Power are now planning to expand the solar project by a further 80 megawatts as the next stage of their Queensland renewable energy portfolio. CS Energy, Queensland government-owned electricity generation company, has agreed to purchase 100% of the solar farm's renewable energy generation for the first 10 years of operation. The Queensland Government also acknowledges the significant contribution Korean strategic investors have made in Queensland, like Korea Zinc into the Sun Metals refinery in Townsville, Kogas into the Gladstone LNG project, and POSCO into coal and gas assets across our state. International investors are coming to Queensland because we've got the settings for industry right. The Queensland Government has invested more than $110 million as part of its hydrogen industry development strategy, and today we have over 40 hydrogen projects in various stages of planning and development across the state. Our investment to date has included more than $50 million in support for industry development activities, as well as investment in education, training and skills that will provide a pathway to highly skilled jobs of the future. Indeed, we see Queensland as being a global centre of excellence for training in clean energy skills. We have also provided financial assistance for private sector projects through the $35 million Hydrogen Industry Development Fund, and we're supporting industry development through the $4.5 billion Renewable Energy and Hydrogen Jobs Fund. This initiative positions Queensland's government-owned corporations at the forefront of renewable energy and hydrogen production. It empowers our government-owned corporations to work in partnership with industry, investors, including our Korean partners, to accelerate our transition to a clean energy economy. Through our government's supportive policies, abundant natural resources, geographic proximity, established energy generation and transport infrastructure, Queensland and Korea will create a viable and scalable green energy supply partnership. A partnership that will bring Queensland to the forefront of global green hydrogen production, supplying domestic and export partners with a sustainable, reliable and safe supply of green hydrogen. Now, here's the really exciting part. The state government recently released its $62 billion Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan. And let me tell you, it has everyone talking, because it really does drive us forward towards a clean energy future. It also heralds a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan sets out a path towards the total transformation of the way we generate, store and distribute electricity. It's a visionary plan for the next century. It positions Queensland as a renewable energy superpower. This plan is about cleaner and secure energy for generations. It's about turbocharging new investment in new minerals, renewable hydrogen, batteries and manufacturing. It represents the biggest commitment to renewable energy in Australia's history. So, what are some of the highlights? 70% of Queensland's energy supply from renewables by 2032, 80% by 2035. 2 new pumped hydros, one at Pioneer Burdekin, the other at Barumba by 2035. A Queensland supergrid connecting solar, wind, battery and hydrogen generators across the state. This will unlock 22 gigawatts of renewable capacity, 8 times our current level. Our own government-owned coal-fired power stations will convert to clean energy hubs, for example, producing hydrogen. We know there'll be 100,000 new jobs and will guarantee the jobs of the workers, and by 2035, Queensland's power system will not require coal-fired power. We'll create 100,000 jobs by 2040, mostly in regional Queensland. We will also enable 11.5 gigawatts of rooftop power and 6 gigawatts of embedded batteries. And we're building Queensland's first hydrogen-ready gas turbine. The Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan allocates a further $15 million to supercharge, coordinate and plan for renewable hydrogen hubs in key locations across the state. And there's $5 million for renewable hydrogen awareness programs, including community hubs, over 3 years to inform communities about the uses and benefits of hydrogen. The plan details $62 billion worth of public and private investment over the next 15 years. So colleagues, this is a step change investment in wind turbines, solar panels, batteries, pumped hydro equipment and transmission lines. Instead of importing wind tower blades, we could be manufacturing them in Queensland to help build our supergrid and indeed exporting them around the world. Over the next 13 years, Queensland alone will need more than 2,000 wind towers and nacelles, more than 7,000 wind tower blades, almost 25 million solar PV modules and nearly 7,000 batteries. Clearly that demonstrates the renewable energy opportunity at our fingertips. And because so much of that componentry kit for large-scale renewable energy generation, storage and transmission would be procured by Queensland's publicly owned energy corporations, we get the chance to use our government purchasing power to drive local manufacturing, which it means even more opportunities for industry. It's also important to note that when it comes to hydrogen, Queensland is committed to producing ours at the highest possible environmental standards. We've signed on as a foundation funding partner to the Smart Energy Council's Zero Carbon Certification Scheme. The scheme assesses the embedded carbon content of hydrogen to ensure that renewable production is maintained. A certificate of origin, if you like, that assures buyers of Queensland's hydrogen being the product that is made by electrolysers powered only from our sunshine and wind. Our blueprint for a clean energy economy also reinforces the fact that Queensland offers the certainty to make long-term investment decisions. Here in Queensland, we understand that certainty will provide the international market with the confidence needed to do business with us. Of course, Market confidence in Queensland's ability to deliver our green hydrogen commitments is already very high. Indeed, our proximity to key Asian markets, where hydrogen demand is expected to be highest, has reinforced our strategic advantage. Importantly, our international partners trust Queensland to deliver sensible, affordable and genuinely green solutions. This trust is something we take very seriously. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the Korea Business Council for Sustainable Development, Trade and Investment Queensland, and everyone else who's helped bring us together again. Queensland is ready to partner with you. We have in Queensland an abundance of renewable resources. We have well-developed ports, an established industrial seaboard infrastructure, mature scientific research and manufacturing capabilities. But what is most abundant in Queensland is our determination. We call it the Queensland spirit, the same drive that won the hosting rights for the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, which we're determined to make the greenest ever. So on behalf of the Queensland Government, our Treasurer, my Minister, and all Queenslanders, I thank you again for the opportunity to address you today. Our State Representative, Mr Ryan Freer, and the TIQ Korea team are on hand with you and would be delighted to assist with information and contacts necessary to advance partnership ambitions with Queensland. I'll leave you now with a quick video about our new energy and jobs plan, which I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
From the clean waters of our pumped hydroelectric dams to our growing number of wind farms to the solar projects energising our regions, the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan will deliver our new supergrid, building the infrastructure, technology and battery storage needed to support new industries and good jobs and power everything we do, helping us deliver clean, reliable, affordable energy now and for generations to come.
Thank you very much. We heard about the energy and hydrogen policies for Queensland, and I believe that those policies will be a good fit for the industry's needs, so that going forward we can expect to see more public-private participation. Thank you very much for the presentation. Next, we'd like to hear from Ho, who is a DG at Korea Hydronuclear Power. We'd like to invite the Director General. The CEO of Korea Hydronuclear Power, Hwang-Ju-ho, was unable to attend, and that is why we'd like to hear from Mr. Chang, who is going to talk about global value chain on new eco-friendly industries. I'd like to introduce myself again. My name is Ho. I'm the head of new businesses at Korea Hydronuclear Power. We've just heard from the moderator, our CEO, Mr. Hwang, who was hoping to make it to this forum, but he was pulled away on account of an emergency, and I was asked to step in. Before I begin the presentation, I would like to begin by thanking all the organizers, particularly Mr. Lee Kyong-Ho, chair of the KBCSD, for preparing this very important forum. This is the contents of my presentation for Korea Hydronuclear Power KHNP. I'd like to talk about securing global value chain in new eco-friendly business sector. We're going to focus on this in my presentation. I will follow this order. First, on energy megatrends. Earlier on, we've heard from other speakers who have variously discussed this issue as well, so I'd like to briefly touch upon this. After COVID, we've seen three major trends: decarbonization, decentralization, and digitalization. These are the three big keywords that we've seen post-COVID, and they will be very significant in shaping the energy megatrends. For energy leaders represented here today at the forum, I believe that you are focusing on carbon neutrality and ESG management and SMR, technological development, as well as hydrogen strategy and fourth industrial revolution. These are some of the areas that energy leaders, corporates, are focusing on. Today, We will have to discuss the 2050 carbon neutrality goals. I believe that that would be a significant milestone for us. And based on our research, if I were to summarize what the other speakers have said, by 2050, according to the carbon neutrality goal that Korea announced last year, we have to reduce carbon emissions by about 4.17% every year. This contrasts with the 2% of EU and Canada and 3% of the USA and Japan and elsewhere. This means that we have energy-intensive industries in Korea because we have a high reliance on the manufacturing sector. This will be a very challenging task. To address the carbon neutrality, we also have to provide stable power to the market, and this is going to be a very important challenge as well. In the 2050 net zero scenario, as of 2020, we will see a 2.7% increase in global power demand to about 71,000 or so terawatt hour, and this is something that the IEA has forecasted. This is a huge percentage increase, representative of about 22%. Currently, in places like Netherlands and France, where renewable energy and nuclear power are the major power sources, their energy density is maybe about 40 or 70 or so, whereas for countries with coal and renewable energy, less coal, their carbon density is roughly about 300 grams, just places in Germany. Based on these mega trends and carbon neutrality strategies, at KHNP, we have two directions for our business model. The first is developing the technologies for SMR, and the second is using our hydrogen business to come up with conversions core businesses across the entire life cycle of hydrogen. We are looking at nuclear power and pump storage hydroelectricity. These would be our major businesses going forward so that we can have a stable and optimal supply of power in the new hydrogen economy, and these would be those areas that we'll be focusing on. Firstly, on SMRs. On the need specifically for SMRs. SMRs are quite flexible and safe. This is a new energy source, and we believe that in the future, SMRs would be one of the most noteworthy and most promising means in renewable energy and new and renewable energy in particular. We will continue to see more development across many different sources. However, we still believe that SMR will have a role to play as an important energy source, even with the development of other renewable energies. Next, on global SMR market, if we were to provide an outlook for this market, Rolls-Royce in the UK have submitted a report on the global market size to about 2035, and they have estimated the demand to be about 65 to 85 gigawatts. And this is their analysis of the SMR market. Both on-grid and off-grid, if we were to replace coal or provide supply to remote areas, that about in the 2030s, the annual market would be estimated at about 135 trillion Korean won. And the basis for this is the Canadian SMR Roadmap report. Based on this market outlook, at KHNP, we are going to focus on innovative SMR business. About 10 years ago, so in 2012, at Kerry, they first received a standardized design approval for SMR, or smart SMR. And to make this more commercially feasible, beginning in 2020, KHNP came up with concept design and standard design. And as of April of this year, we have received support from the government and the National Assembly to go through pre-feasibility study and receive a 400 billion won in funding. Beginning next year, we will undertake SMR technological development. On the bottom, you would see our project schedule. We believe that about 2030 or so, the SMR market would become viable. And currently, we are going through the different permits and approval process and keeping in step with this project schedule. This slide is closely aligns with the theme for today's forum, which is on how we can secure the global value chain. On this particular issue, we feel that we can use the value chain for nuclear power because we have top-class nuclear power value chain already at our disposal. We can make use of this. And based on the SMR project schedule that I mentioned before, we have about 3 to about 5-year time lag between ourselves and the world-class competitors, and that is true for SMRs. However, at KHNP, we do believe that we can make use of the nuclear power value chain, and that's the public value chain, but also the private sector value chain for nuclear power as well that exists in Korea, so that we can create a new value chain for SMRs. I believe that this places us at an advantage. So for the first stage, we can engage in joint R&D and marketing. And as a second stage, we can establish a special purpose entity to have full-scale launch of the project, have support from the private sector, and also have a stronger international collaboration across all of our different stakeholders so that we can secure the global value chain. Next is on hydrogen economy. This slide shows the need for a hydrogen economy. Last year, the Framework Act, or the basic plan for the implementation of the hydrogen economy, was announced that about 27.9 million tons of hydrogen will be produced by about 2050, pulling from different areas across nuclear, hydro, wind, solar, blue hydrogen, and import sources, and that this hydrogen would be made use of across different industries. The hydrogen economy would lead to carbon neutrality, new industries, and even for energy security. We believe that hydrogen is a very attractive energy source in that regard. Let us now look at the hydrogen market outlook. According to McKinsey, as of 2020, hydrogen production was about 100 million tons, and this is going to increase to about 140 million tons by 2030 and about 660 million tons by about 2050. This means that about by 2050, that hydrogen would account for 22% of global energy demand. The entire market, inclusive of production and sales and transport and storage and utilization, would be totally about $2 trillion, accounting for 419 billion and 613 billion and 941 billion respectively. This is the current status of the hydrogen business at KHNP. Across production and the distribution and utilization of hydrogen, we are focusing across the entire life cycle of hydrogen and particularly focusing on the utilization and production as well. For distribution, we're going to enter into strategic partnerships with public and private sector partners. For production, we can make use of biogas and also use renewables as well, obviously, and nuclear and hydro power sources. These would all be included in the production front. For the utilization side, we can currently make use of fuel cells or byproducts, although they are at a transitional stage. Smart cities and fuel cells, these are different business models that we have at KHNP. And beginning this year, we are also going to enter into We, in fact, have begun demonstration of these different business models. And so across this value chain, we want to have low carbon power generation and creating a global value chain for the clean hydrogen cycle on renewable and hydrogen. We are going to create and produce clean hydrogen, and both in the public and private sectors, I think that in terms of market share, we are #1 in clean hydrogen. So we do already have a value chain for hydrogen utilization, although I did mention that we are still at a transitional stage. And this is going to be the basis for us to jump into different equipment and fuel supply value chain that we can build at scale. For the hydrogen business value chain, we will make use of all of the different advantages that we have, and that would go into creating the SMR value chain, and we believe that they will be a good fit. Lastly, these are some of the suggestions that KHNP would like to provide on securing a global value chain in this new business area. We believe that three things are necessary. The first is that we need to address the market in the future properly, and this means that the industry ecosystem should be in place by maintaining the necessary workforce and supply chain. And secondly, there needs to be legal and policy making supports, especially on clean hydrogen production. Particularly, there needs to be public consensus. And lastly, we need to foster investment from the private sector and also talk about maybe establishing a special purpose vehicle so that we can secure a global value chain as we cooperate with private sector partners. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation on KHNP's work on securing global value chain for new businesses. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That was a carbon-free, eco-friendly project, and the presentation was delivered by KHNP. Lastly, we'd like to invite President and CEO of NewScale Power, John Hopkins. He will talk about SMR as a game changer for carbon neutrality, NewScale Power's value chain partnership strategy to drive global SMR market. Mr. John Hopkins was also a member of the Commissioner of the U.S. Nuclear Commission, and NewScale Power is a #1 SMR company that is closest to the commercialization of SMR. He's played a pivotal role in bringing this achievement.
Hello. 안녕하세요. I'd like to start by taking the opportunity to express my gratitude for being invited to share with you some insights on how NewScale Power is changing the power that changes the world. Our industry-leading small modular reactor, SMR technology, is creating a reliable carbon-free energy source that is smarter, cleaner, safer, and cost competitive, which will be fundamental as we transition away from fossil fuel energy sources to reach global net zero goals. Achieving these net zero goals cannot be done without nuclear energy as part of the equation, and SMR technology can provide carbon-free power that is as clean as wind and solar while providing the reliability to support an evolving grid. Furthermore, SMR technology has the flexibility to economically produce hydrogen and decarbonize sectors like transportation and aviation. The nuclear power industry clearly has a bright future and will provide significant partnership opportunities with countries like the Republic of Korea to fill supply chain gaps, offer expertise in creating financing opportunities as we all work towards achieving a net zero future. First, let me begin with a brief introduction of our technology. The NewScale Power Module is a 77 megawatt integral pressurized water reactor that employs gravity-driven natural circulation of the primary coolant for both normal operations and shutdown mode. Our SMR technology is designed to be fully factory built and shipped to the plant site by truck, rail, or barge without the need for field fabrication, erection, or construction. Its simple design eliminates reactor cooling pumps, large bore piping, and other systems and components found in conventional reactors. Its simplicity results in an extremely strong safety case and reduced capital and operational costs. Additionally, the modules can be incrementally added to match load growth, which means they can complement renewable energy sources very well. NuScale power modules can also produce cost-effective green hydrogen at scale. Each customer can choose the number of power modules to suit their needs. Our 3 Voyager SMR power plant size offerings can be scaled in 77 megawatt increments up to 12 modules or 924 megawatts, allowing customers to select a power plant solution to meet their power and capacity needs. Now, the focus of today is explaining how NuScale has leveraged our value chain to become the front runner for global adoption of SMR technology. The Republic of Korea, like the United States, has set an ambitious goal to achieve net zero by 2050. Nuclear technology will ultimately help both of our countries achieve our decarbonization goals. NuScale has responded to these global goals by developing a transformational SMR that delivers scalable, safe, and reliable carbon-free nuclear power. NuScale is the SMR company that is closest to commercialization due to a number of reasons. We are currently the only company in the U.S. to have received SMR design approval from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. We are the first and only SMR company on the public stock market. We have raised cumulatively investments of $1.4 billion US. We've had 15 years of research and testing in the SMR space, which has led to a very experienced team of almost 500 people and more than 600 patents from our company. We have customers not only in America, but around the world, along with important strategic partners here in Korea. But we haven't done this alone. In many ways, our success is the result of joint engagements between government and business. The U.S. Department of Energy has supported NuScale's development with cost-sharing awards received to date totaling more than $656 million. It is also the partnership with the Department of Energy's Advanced SMR program that allowed NuScale and our early investor floor to make history by receiving the first design approval by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Thirdly, grants by the U.S. Department of Energy have allowed us to set up 3 educational centers at universities in Oregon, Idaho, and Texas. These facilities are innovative learning environments that promote hands-on experience with SMR technology and allow us to train the next generation of nuclear operators. In May, we announced plans to open the first global E2 center in Europe to support workforce capacity building for the next generation of nuclear experts, technologists, and operators across the world. These public-private partnerships have put us on the front lines of the global SMR market and efforts to reach net zero goals. But another reason why we've come so far as we have is due to our supply chain transformation. First of all, established industry giants have stepped forward to support our effort to provide 100% carbon-free power to the world. In 2019, Doosan Heavy Industries and Construction became one of our most strategic supplier chain partners and investors. In 2021, JGC, IHI, GS Energy, and Samsung C&T also joined as strategic investors. This gave us the time and resources to develop our advanced nuclear technology. Secondly, there is a view held by some in the marketplace that due to the uniqueness of SMRs, the current supply chain does not have the expertise, capability, or capacity to supply equipment for these technologies. For some SMR vendors, this is likely to be the case. For instance, obtaining the fuel for the non-light water designs will likely require new fuel fabrication facilities or production lines to be built. For NuScale, this is not the case when considering the global supply chain. Our technology is developed around key tenets of our manufacturing and supply chain. This means we have very few first-of-a-kind components. We have an asset-light model with a manufacturing integrator and no fabrication facilities. We are aligned with proven manufacturing partners and have developed a robust supply chain organization to provide oversight and monitoring of suppliers. Our intellectual property is well protected. We utilize a flexible approach to scale production quickly through our supply chain development and global supply chains. We are manufacturer agnostic, which allows most components to be built to print. Our nuclear components and equipment, like our NuScale power modules, can be made at already existing and qualified vendor shops with companies like Doosan Honorary and IHI. We have relationships with several other nuclear pressure vessel manufacturers to ensure sufficient capacity to scale to meet demand. For fuel, we already have an existing and established supplier in Framatome. For the rest of the supply chain for NuScale plants, we'll use commercial off-the-shelf components and other readily available equipment, for which there are many suppliers. Our ability to source our equipment with existing suppliers and with existing capacity is a very important competitive advantage. We have now moved beyond the design phase by conducting testing, prototypical demonstrations, and manufacturing trials on essentially all of the primary systems first-of-a-kind equipment. To date, roughly $150 million has been dedicated to our state-of-the-art testing programs. The design development process, which has been formed by Doosan Honorary and BWXT, includes manufacturing feedback to optimize design and lower costs, manufacturing plan development, and preliminary drawings. To date, NuScale has spent over $7.8 million providing manufacturing readiness through manufacturing trials, and an additional $7 million is planned and earmarked for far more trials. These trials allow us to reduce risk and increase cost certainty for first-of-a-kind deployment. NuScale and Doosan Honorary announced through a signed agreement that Doosan will begin production of forging materials for NuScale's SMR in 2022, with expectations for full-scale equipment manufacturing by the latter half of 2023. Doosan will begin production and forging dies for NuScale's upper reactor pressure vessel, making the start of NuScale power module production. Long lead materials are scheduled to be ordered by the end of the year. The bottom line is that we have the most developed supply chain within the SMR industry, giving us a clear path to commercialization. The third reason why our SMR technology is poised to be the first to market is due to our international strategic partners. We have a portfolio of internationally recognized strategic partners who are helping us design, develop, and commercialize our technology globally. We have attracted significant investment from Asia, including from Korea, such as from Doosan, GS Energy, and Samsung C&T's engineering and construction group. Many of these same leading manufacturing, engineering, procurement, and construction companies are strategic suppliers who will support us in bringing NuScale power plants to customers on a global scale. Importantly, we have signed an MOU with Samsung C&T Corporation, Doosan Honorary, and GS Energy Corporation to explore the deployment of NuScale Voyager and NuScale power modules. This memorandum of understanding is a critical next step in bringing NuScale's clean energy solution to Asia. Together, we will explore jointly studying, planning, and developing the deployment of revolutionary Voyager small modular reactor power plants in specific locations in Asia and other locations where mutually agreed. The projected growth of global nuclear energy consumption as a means to reach climate goals creates new opportunities to build on the existing U.S.-Korean agreement to promote civil nuclear energy. As the U.S. increases the export of U.S. nuclear technology like SMRs to other countries, It will rely on countries like the Republic of Korea to fill gaps in its supply chain, offer expertise, and create opportunities for financing. NuScale is changing the power that changes the world by creating an energy source that is smarter, cleaner, safer, and cost competitive. Our Voyager SMR power plant is the only near-term deployable and commercially viable advanced nuclear generation solution for communities across the globe seeking a reliable, safe, and carbon-free solution to meet net zero goals. The transformational manufacturing and supply chain strategy behind our path to commercialization represents a new approach to building, operating, and maintaining nuclear power plants. With our technology and your continued partnership, we can improve the quality of life for all humankind. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. That was a presentation on achieving net neutrality using the SMR technology. Thank you very much to presenter, CEO John Hopkins. So that brings us to the end of all the presentations from our speakers. We will now begin the Q&A. Due to the time constraint, I would like to ask that you please answer the questions within 3 minutes. I would like to, before I begin, to our speakers and to our panelists, let me take this opportunity to ask you questions first. My first question goes to Kyong-Ho, CEO and Vice Chairman of Hyundai Oil Bank. My first question goes to you. Many companies consider hydrogen business to be quite lucrative in the future, and we see many companies are rushing to invest into this business. What are some of the key operational and business capabilities that Hyundai Oil Bank currently enjoys? Well, regarding this question, I think I can provide three aspects to this. The first is Hyundai Heavy Industry, the group itself. We have capabilities in shipbuilding as well as construction equipment and also energy and petrochem business. We have the supply chain or the value chain in these business areas. And basically, we have capability to jointly conduct research and development. And so when it comes to hydrogen business, we believe that we have competitiveness and the fact that we have the established value chain. And also, second, because we are an energy company that uses fossil fuel energy sources, we need to prepare for the future. If you look at the electrification projects and businesses, it is well advanced. So hence, at this point in time, for us to enter into that domain will require a significant amount of research or investment. Hence, we've decided that hydrogen will be our future business for the company. And so also, lastly, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and objective is 40% by 2030 and by 2050, net neutrality. That is the target that most of the companies have set for themselves. If you think about carbon usage or abating carbon, that is, it is quite difficult or challenging. And the way for us to respond to that is to eliminate the use of carbon dioxide, even at the energy source, and replace that with hydrogen. We think that that would be the most effective way for us. At the end of the day, for us to overcome this challenge, for us to become a leading player in the hydrogen domain will bring us that capability.
Thank you very much for that response. Next, we'd like to turn to Mr. Ryan Freer, Commissioner of the Korea Trade and Investment Queensland, who is here on behalf of the Honorable Mick DeBrenny. Here is the question. What makes Queensland such an attractive partner to Korea for renewable energy and green hydrogen industry? And where do other opportunities exist in Queensland for strategic partnership with Korean businesses to decarbonize industry supply chains? Thank you very much for the question, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
I'd first like to thank and acknowledge the KBCSD and Korea's Ministry of Environment for the invitation to Queensland to be here today. Queensland has been a reliable and trusted energy supplier to Korea for more than 40 years. We have a highly strategic partnership that will only grow in importance as we transition toward sustainable development and a clean energy future. Our partnership has a rich and robust history based on cooperation, friendship, and shared values. Queensland's abundant natural resources, including land, we are more than twice the size of Texas, wind and sun, we are known as the Sunshine State, geographic proximity to Korea, established energy transmission and transport infrastructure means that Queensland and Korea will create a viable and scalable green hydrogen supply partnership. Queensland is emerging as a global leader in renewable and alternative energies. We are delighted that Korean corporations are increasingly committing to be part of this journey with Queensland. By 2030, Queensland will be at the forefront of green hydrogen production in Australia, supplying both domestic and export partners with a sustainable, reliable, and safe supply of green hydrogen. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for that answer. We now move on to Director General from KHNP, Mr. Chang. I would like to understand as to why private participation is considered very important, and also can you provide us with the reason why the use of nuclear power plant is advantageous in producing hydrogen? Thank you very much for that question. If you look at the SMR business, it is quite different from the large-scale nuclear power plant. If you look at the production unit price or the construction price or the construction duration, if you look at the large-scale NPPs, they cost about 8 to 10 trillion Korean won in terms of cost, and also it would take about 56 months to build out that nuclear power plant. But if you look at SMR, it is module-based, so it will require less than 3 trillion Korean won to build an SMR, and it will take about 24 months to build out an SMR. So it's shorter. So in terms of policy and overall framework, if we can provide some policy support to build SMRs, we believe that SMR could play a very important role in the future as an energy source. Hence, it is important that private entities participate in the SMR domain so that we can facilitate the further development and build out of SMR. And regarding the second aspect of your question, why it is helpful in hydrogen production, number one reason is that it is cost efficient. Of course, the price may differ. However, per kilo, consumer price will be about 8,000 won. That is at the charging stations. But if you look at the unit price of hydrogen that uses renewable sources, it's 9,000 Korean won. But if you were to use nuclear power plant and produce hydrogen, we understand that unit cost is 3,200 Korean won. If we are to actually apply that in real life, the price range may differ. However, this is based on the calculation as of date. Basically, if nuclear power plant power is used to produce hydrogen, the cost base could be significantly reduced. And also, if you design the SMR in a way that would best befit the production of hydrogen, that could actually work as a good differentiating factor in exporting the technologies and the SMRs that we develop in Korea.
Thank you very much for the response. Now we'd like to turn to Professor Lee Dong-Hoop of Dongguk University, who is going to provide us with a panelist presentation. As you know, in the new administration, they are prioritizing wood utilization as a policy to absorb carbon. Globally, the role of wood architecture and wooden buildings as a method to decrease the emissions of carbon is becoming more noteworthy. Based on these latest trends, Professor Lee is going to tell us about the value chain, particularly the sustainable value chain of wood architecture and wooden buildings, and provide us with the insight on the economic and environmental value of wooden structures here to the participants that are with us today. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you. This is a great honor for me. I'm going to very quickly go through my presentation. We have seen decarbonization. Over 130 countries have announced this, and as of September, we already have a framework act on carbon neutrality here in place in Korea. And this is placing a burden on corporations, and though because of this zero carbon policy is going to be potentially the single largest challenge for this half-century. They say buildings are very high emitters of carbon. They are hippos that eat energy, so to speak. And the carbon that is captured inside construction materials is called embodied carbon. Embodied carbon was going to continue to increase 30 years now. It will account for 49% of new emissions from buildings. Under the 2050 carbon neutrality scenario, in other sectors, carbon emissions are set to decrease significantly, but there are some areas where we were going to continue to see emissions in the form of residual emissions, and they are expected to be about 80 million tons, and this is what we need to offset. In the operation of buildings, there are the operational carbon that would arise from the buildings, and through energy regulations we can cut down on them, but there is a limit to what we can do with the embodied carbon that is already inside the construction materials. And so for these residual carbon emissions, we have to work on them with the carbon credits and offsets. However, we can also think about carbon fixation using wood products. This could be a possible solution. For net zero, we can also buy time by making use of forest resources and timber. This means that if we want to source this wood, we have to make use of forestry management. For forestry management, the typical cycle takes over 50 years for one forestry circulation cycle to go round and come back. And this means that we must expand sources for carbon adaptation, carbon adoption in forests, taking a very long-term view. In Korea, as you know, wood products and timber products are made through photosynthesis. Photosynthesis allows the leaves to break down carbon dioxide in the air into carbon and oxygen, and the separated carbon is stored back in the wood, which allows it to grow and expand. This is how we get timber. This is how we get the forestry wood products, and this is why wood is often referred to as canned carbon dioxide. The forestry stock in Korea is estimated to be at a period where we can make use of the wood. But since profitability is low, these resources are being ignored. If we want this to lead to sustainable reinvestment, we must convert this to a production of value-added construction materials. If we were to build buildings with wood and timber, we can solve the problem of residual emissions from embodied carbon. Because 50% of wood is composed of carbon. If the timber can be used in construction, we can use that same time to engage in planting and the felling of trees 2 or 3 more times. With this, carbon absorption will increase almost like in an interest-bearing account. With compound interest, they will continue to go up over time. And also, because these wood products can be repurposed, we can have multiple carbon offsets. However, currently this carbon circulation cycle in wood and timber is closed off. So this means that the stored carbon could be released into the air. But if the wood buildings, if we can use the timber as a construction material in the building of buildings and structures, we can optimize carbon isolation, maximize carbon storage, and minimize emissions. This means that as this cycle ring grows larger, the synergy effects will also grow. Removing our carbon footprint is the first step for corporations in undertaking their social responsibility. Unlike other construction materials, wood does not require energy consumption in the manufacturing process, and the carbon emissions that come out in the construction process is less than half that of other construction materials. Forests and wood products could potentially help corporations lead ethical ESG investments and transform humanity's future. If we can connect ESG investment to forestries and wood and timber, then we can open a sustainable future. We expect to see the Korean answer for the potential of wood and timber products here at the KBCSD Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee, for your presentation. You provided us with an eco-friendly insight with regards to the forestry stock. We have invited the leaders from the business as well as the government organizations, and we were able to shed light on the ways to accelerate the carbon neutral economy as to what the right policy mix is. We've talked about SMR hydrogen economy as well. We've also talked about some of the business strategies. Although it was a very short session, I believe that we were able to provide you and share with you some of the insights that would be helpful. In order for us to revisit the eco-friendly industries underpinned by ESG pillars, I look forward to more dynamic cooperation, and I believe that we were able to provide helpful guidelines. This brings me to the end of the special talk session. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I would like to thank Vice Chairman Kim Jae-yeon and all of the panelists and speakers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of our participants, and I would also like to thank our speakers from both home and abroad for their insightful and informative presentation.